So it's 2 o'clock. I think we can start.
Okay, so I think like to get started this side event organized by the Moon Village Association. So I am Giuseppe Ribaldi. I'm the president of the Moon Village Association, and I'm very pleased that we'll be able to hold this side event here at STC. So I'd like to thank the staff of UNOSA to have made this possible, and of course the attendees. As you will see, the program we have a lot of speakers lined up. In the presentation this morning, I explained that the MVA has been working on several activities, and what we are presenting today is the work done in the last few years. So without further ado, I'll give the floor to the chair of the Global Expert Group on Sustainable Activity, Dr. Dimitri Prunariu, and he will run the rest of the meeting. Dorin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. I would say a few words about our Global Expert Group on Sustainable Lunar Activities. As you know, a number of issues must be addressed in connection with the moon exploration and exploitation, and with the settlement in and around the moon, including, for example, mitigating the creation of debris in lunar orbit, defining standards to enable interoperability, regulating access to natural resources, and many other topics. In 2019, the Moon Village Association created an international platform to address these critical issues, with a goal of de-risking future lunar missions and increasing global cooperation for lunar exploitation and settlement. The MVA decided to promote the development of a neutral forum for multi-stakeholder discussions on lunar exploration. This is the Global Expert Group on Sustainable Lunar Activities, with the goal of de-risking future lunar missions and increasing global cooperation for lunar exploitation and settlements. As you say, we 37 experts from 24 countries worked during 2 years. We had meetings every month and analyzed a lot of aspects connected with the exploration of the moon. Between these aspects is information sharing, safe operations and lunar environment protection, interoperability, lunar governance, benefits for humanity, sustained lunar economy, human interactions, and other topics. So this recommended framework and key elements issued by us are designed to provide certainty and predictability through technology-neutral recommendations to all public and private actors intending to conduct lunar activities under the principles of international space law enshrined in the Outer Space Treaty, including the freedom of use and exploration of space, and also to promote a constructive multilateral exchange of views on such activities, including their legal, technical, industrial, social, and economic aspects under UN COPUOS, and facilitate, of course, international cooperation and coordination in such activities. As long as we already have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that includes all these aspects connected with our GEGSLA and with our work, I will invite Jan Christensen, who is Director of Private Sector Programs at Secure World Foundations, to introduce himself and to make the presentation. Jan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning from Washington, D.C. As introduced, I'm Ian Christensen with the Secure World Foundation. Secure World Foundation is a NGO focused on the sustainability of the space environment. We are honored to serve as a permanent observer at COPUOS, and I actually look forward to joining the meeting in person next week. So it's a pleasure to be here. As Doran has said, I'm going to give you just a brief introduction and overview of the work that GEGSLA has done over the last 2 years and introduce the recommended framework and key elements for peaceful and sustainable lunar activities, which I believe are available in physical copy for those of you in Vienna and are available on the Moon Village Association website for those of you participating virtually and for the broader community. And we'll share the link to that as we move through the presentation here today. So, Mr. Chair, you've already very nicely introduced the motivations for GEGSLA, but to sort of somewhat restate that, we know that there's a large wave and a large interest in lunar exploration. A number of missions, both governmental and non-governmental, plan to operate in, around, and on the lunar surface in the coming years. And there's a current lack of coordination mechanisms to ensure the sustainability and safety of future missions in the lunar environment and the sustainability and safety of that environment itself. So GEGSLA was established by the MVA to address these issues. The working objectives for GEGSLA were to leverage contributions from space agencies, private companies, and international organizations. We were to involve the public by promoting outreach efforts. We were to serve as a platform to exchange information and views within the community on peaceful and sustainable lunar activities. And we're to support complementary activities in discussion of the development of an international framework for lunar coordination. So issues like long-term sustainability, space resources utilization, how they relate to broader lunar coordination issues. So GEGSLA published the recommended framework and key elements for peaceful and sustainable lunar activities this week, and it was the outcome of our 2-year work period. We are providing this document as a resource to the international community, in particular for COPUOS, to begin further discussions of lunar coordination issues. And we hope that the recommended framework is a useful outcome in that context. As mentioned, GEGSLA was established by the Moon Village Association. Our working methods were that we met in monthly plenary meetings starting in February of 2021 and concluding just in December of 2022. Meetings were held virtually under Chatham House rule, and all members participated in their individual capacity. GEGSLA established 4 subgroups to develop the recommended framework. Those subgroups covered information sharing, safe operations and lunar environmental protection, compatibility and interoperability in lunar operations, and responsible governance. Prior to finalizing the recommended framework, we issued a public consultation. So a number of questions were put out to the community via survey mechanism, and we received that feedback and considered it as we finalized the document. And GEGSLA was sponsored by a diverse set of industry, government, and civil society organizations. So the introductory slide had a number of logos at the bottom of it. Those were the organizations that provided the financial support to enable GEGSLA's operations. So we do thank those sponsors, which included, as I mentioned, industry, government, and civil society. So information about the organization and structure of GEGSLA is available on the Moon Village Association website, link at the bottom of the slide there, moonvillageassociation.org/GEGSLA/about. As Doran mentioned, we had a very diverse expert group that served as the members of GEGSLA. There were 37 experts representing a multitude of disciplines. Some of those experts will be giving their perspective as we after my remarks here, and so I look forward to hearing from my colleagues. Those experts represented countries truly from across the globe. So GEGSLA, Global Expert Group on Sustainable Lunar Activities, I think we very much represented the global aspect of the community, our membership. Beyond the membership directly, there were nearly 200 observers from more than 40 countries. So again, a very participatory and diverse group that contributed to the development of the framework. So we're talking about the recommended framework and key elements for peaceful and sustainable lunar activities. What do we mean when we say that? So the recommended framework is meant to be a guide for well-balanced lunar projects, which, as a guide, shows how to implement safe and sustainable lunar activities through norm setting, coordination, and management. That norm setting, coordination, and management will build upon principles of international space law, relevant other UN documents, soft law documents, and multilateral agreements. Extends those existing principles into a framework to effectively facilitate dialogue and cooperation amongst multiple lunar stakeholders, with the aim of providing transparency, accountability, and certainty for all lunar stakeholders, both now and in the future. As such, the recommended framework is intended to be a living document. We initially focused on near and medium-term needs, as a comprehensive input to COPUOS, but we do look to have this document be a conversation and a continuing source of updates as lunar practice evolves. With that said, let's talk about what the structure of the recommended framework is. The document has 11 chapters. Those cover a wide range of lunar issues. It starts with 4 basic chapters that cover the basic principles. So taking those norms, existing documents, existing law, and applying them to the lunar context. Objectives of GEGSLA, definition of key terms, international legal norms for lunar activities, and coordination of management. Those then core principles in those first 4 chapters are reflected and refined through 7 further chapters that look at specific issues within lunar coordination. So those include information sharing, safe operations and lunar environmental protection, compatibility and interoperability, lunar governance, benefits of lunar activities, perspectives on sustaining a lunar economy, and how to maintain human interactions on the moon. So within these chapters, we cover things like safety standards. We cover things like cultural and heritage protection. We cover things like coordinating between governmental, scientific, and commercial use. And so it's meant to be a comprehensive document that sets out a number of, as we say, key principles. So I encourage delegations in the room and online to look at the document, send us feedback, and hopefully it informs discussion as we move forward. There are additional documents within the GEGSLA publication that provide supporting information to the recommended framework. Those are 2 annex documents, one on technical and operational practices and case studies on peaceful lunar activities. And the second is a list of future issues. These annexes were developed in large part through cooperation with the observers to GEGSLA and are meant to provide a complement to the overall work within the recommended framework, although those annexes themselves are not consensus products of GEGSLA. Furthermore, there are 2 additional supplementary documents available on the MBA website related to sustainable management of lunar natural and cultural heritage, suggested guidelines, and related to environmental assessment practices. So again, not consensus documents, but meant to provide supplemental information that supports the work done by GEGSLA as a whole. So next steps, using and exploring on the moon will represent unforeseen challenges that will test the limits of human ingenuity and cooperation. GEGSLA hopes that the recommended framework and key elements will provide the next steps forward to ensure a peaceful and sustainable foundation for lunar activities. In such, we offer the recommended framework to the attention of COPUOS for further discussion and deliberation. Outcomes would be improved through further community participation. So we look to wide dissemination of the recommended frameworks, including translation into other languages beyond English. And we look to work with industry actors to verify some of the recommended practices that are contained within the document. GEGSLA itself will remain in place as an informal consultation group for the development of lunar coordination principles and gathering of experience related to ongoing lunar missions. And so we welcome any further comments or interactions. And for more information, please contact GEGSLA at the email address shown at the bottom of the screen. And that, Doran, I'll yield the floor back to the next steps in our presentation.
Thank you very much, Jan. As long as we make this presentation at the UN, at COPUOS, we encourage the participation of developing countries and encourage also the participation of young specialists in industry and in science. Not only them, but also big industries presented in our GEGSLA activity and also space agencies. I want to show you now the perspective of different stakeholders. First, I will start with the representative of governments, and I give the floor to Ayman Ahmed, who is the head of the Space Imaging Division at the Egyptian Space Agency and a member of the board of directors of this agency, and member of the Egyptian National Space Council, and a member of the African Space Working Group to develop African space policy and strategy. Ayman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Doran. Thank you.
The perspective of the Space Agency.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like here to present our perspective for participating in GEGSLA. So as a space agency, as a governmental space agency, as an emerging space country, we have participated 2 years in GEGSLA, and this participation provided us with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge sharing, especially from point of view of interaction with the industry, of the academia, universities, professors. We saw that this participation and this engagement have a unique mixture worldwide because it creates a novel dialogue between the different stakeholders. So as a space agency, as a government, we can exchange our knowledge, our perspective with the industry. We can also, it can reflect the perspective of the industry to the academia and vice versa. I think this dialogue is unique worldwide and it provided us with a lot of experience. From other perspective, as an emerging space country, we have gained a lot of having this experience with interaction with experts in a world level, in a global level. We have also a high scientific experience to be acquired this through our participation in GEGSLA. We also would be very happy to participate in the next phase of the implementation of GEGSLA framework. I think this also provided us with a lot of experience, and this gives us also opportunity to put our perspective from governmental point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayman. Now we heard the perspective of industry, represented this time by Omolade Odetara, who works as a product owner at Lean Space, transforming software for the space industry and enabling the future space economy with an innovative innovation platform that makes it easy to build entire space software infrastructures. Omolade, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, I'm Omolade, and today I stand before you representing the industry as a concerned industry participant to discuss the importance of the framework document that GEGSLA has produced from the industry perspective. And clearly to us all, humanity will continue to explore the moon. And this time around, we have private actors that will be part of the lunar exploration. So we see clearly that the space industry is a crucial part of our global economy. And of course, it plays an important role in the future of our species as humans. And industrial activities generally are there to drive economic growth and to power the world industry. So it's from these that we're very concerned, and we think it's very important to explore the moon in a very sustainable way. And of course, this is why the document was produced by GEGSLA. It's so important. We've worked on this for around 2 years now, and it's very comprehensive and sustainable. And of course, the document highlights the need for increased collaboration between industry stakeholders and to ensure that every participant is aligned with the goals of operating peacefully. As an industry participant, I'm very concerned about how to interact with other industry participants in terms of research and development on the moon. So it's important that we take this framework with high regard, and we need to act very fast, and we need to be decisive and move very fast in terms of outlining a framework that would guide the peaceful coexistence of private actors on the lunar environment. And this is another reason why we would also say we need to develop a more robust framework that is very consistent and that would advance like this lunar ecosystem. I also need to mention that this time around, where humanity explores the moon, we have an emergence of capabilities among developing nations. And of course, I represent a developing country, Nigeria in Africa. And while it's also important to talk about how lunar exploration will benefit developing countries, we should also bear in mind that developing countries have a lot to contribute to, and so it should not be an afterthought. They need to be involved as early as possible, even while the design, the conceptualization is taking place. And we also need to be very concerned about interoperability. We don't want to go to the moon and have to think about how to work together as an afterthought. It's something that should be done and should be clarified long before we actually get there. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Omolade. Thank you for your perspective. Now we look for the perspective of academia and scientific community. And it will be presented by by Jan Crawford, who is currently Professor of Planetary Science and Astrobiology at Birkbeck College, University of London. The main focus of his research is in the area of lunar exploration, including the remote sensing of the lunar surface and the laboratory analysis of lunar samples. And of course, Jan has more activities connected with the outer space. Jan, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody, at least afternoon in Vienna. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I come to this from a scientific background. And of course, science is already a very international activity where we're well used to scientific and international coordination and cooperation in scientific matters. But as we move forward to explore the moon, things are moving, as Omalade said earlier, things are now moving very fast, and there is now a pressing need for increased coordination between governments and commercial entities when it comes to exploring the moon. And I think in particular, there's a potential tension that may arise between the scientific exploration of the moon and its commercial exploitation. And so we have to find a way of coordinating this activity, both to ensure that scientists have the access that we need to understand the universe around us, while industry also has the access that it needs to develop a sustainable space economy. So all of this requires coordination. I think speed is of the essence. Just if we look at this calendar year, we're expecting something like 6 attempts to land on the moon just in the coming year. So it's becoming very important to coordinate this activity internationally now, and especially to try and resolve tensions before they arise between scientific and commercial activities. And I think the way to do that is to try and reach agreement on how we would identify sites of special scientific interest. Just as on the Earth, we have sites of special scientific interest, which are sort of kind of reserved for scientific activities. There's an important need now to identify sites of special scientific interest on the moon. But it is important that the international community moves quite quickly in this direction, I think. And so from that point of view, the GEGSLA framework is an excellent and very important stimulus to trying to have people starting to think along these lines. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jan.
Now we have the perspective of the civil society and of the new generation. Suyan Cristina Malhadas is a Brazilian space lawyer and researcher specialized in the governance of lunar activities. She holds a master's degree in international law and a specialist degree in space law and policy, both from the Catholic University of Santos. Suyan, from Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Suya Malhadas, and I'm a space law and policy researcher in Brazil at the Catholic University of Santos, and a member of the Space Law Commission in the Brazilian Bar Association, the national coordinator of the Moon Village Association in Brazil, and a member of the International Institute of Space Law and participant of the GEGSLA. I am honored to be here today representing the new generations and the civil society, and also as someone from a developing country. The new generations are thrilled with the steady increase of lunar missions and the universe of new possibilities that will emerge for humanity. But on the other hand, we are concerned that should the missions occur without coordination, transparency, and regard for sustainability, the potential for conflicts and adverse environmental impacts both on the moon and on Earth may be worrisome. So as excited as we are with lunar activities, the preservation of the environmental balance on the moon, the natural heritage and cultural heritage on the moon matters, and international coordination is essential to properly address these concerns. We would also like to bring to your attention that lunar activities must benefit society as a whole, solving problems on Earth, promoting access to space, inclusion in value chains, data sharing, capacity building in STEM, the development of nations and individuals, creating opportunities, especially for the vulnerable, the poor, minorities, reducing gender gaps and other discrepancies, and therefore contributing to mitigate economic and social inequalities instead of just aggravating them. In this respect, we, the developing countries, also need to take part in the debate and express our perspectives, our interests, now that such urgent topics are arising and important decisions will be made, decisions that will affect everyone in the globe. The GEGSLA recommended framework, as my colleagues have already mentioned, address these concerns very comprehensively. And we must bear in mind, as everyone has already highlighted, that missions for the moon are already happening. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the new generations and civil society understand that it's critical that we move quickly to define a way forward that honors coordination, cooperation, social and environmental concerns, so that when we go back to the moon, we do not repeat the mistakes we made on Earth, but instead we can create the conditions for a future of prosperity for humankind, where no one is left behind. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Suyan. As you notice, our recommended framework and key elements for peaceful and sustainable lunar activities already published. You see the book here. It was distributed to all member states of COPWAS, and also the observers could ask for the book at the counter with documents. Our approach is more operational than other approaches here at the level of the UN. We don't overlap with the activities of other working groups or groups that start working on these issues. If the working group on space resources is mainly focused on legal aspects of the exploitation of the moon from the point of view of space resources, and if the information sharing is also approached at the level of COPWAS by different member states, we approach all these problems from the operational point of view. We don't overlap with the space resources. We don't treat it in our document space resources, especially because it's already approached in the framework of the working group on space resources here at the legal subcommittee of COPWAS. So from the operational point of view, it's important to start working, analyzing, and debating as soon as possible, as long as many missions are scheduled in the next years to the moon. Now, I ask the audience if you have questions. We are happy to give you our answers. So there are about 20 participants in the conference room here, and some of them, they are online because this session is hybrid. If you have any questions, please ask them.
Hey, Dorn.
Yes, Kevin, please.
Yeah, thanks. This is Kevin Knoll from NASA and the US delegation. And I just wanted to say thanks for this very interesting presentation and for all the work that you all have done on this. I look forward to learning more about it. Of course, we have to discuss it.
Just 1 minute to see if you, the other participants online, they hear you.
Yep.
Giuseppe, do you hear?
Yes, we can hear you, Kevin.
Yes. Okay. Because I was not sure that it works, the microphone here. Yes, okay. Okay, Kevin, you can continue.
No, I mean, NASA, of course, is doing a lot in the area of interoperability for lunar communications and navigation, working on standards document that's available publicly on the internet. Our White House Office of Science and Technology Policy just recently released the first national cislunar science and technology strategy, which also calls for the United States to lead a proposal for an international lunar year. And we're going to talk about that, I think, next week here in the committee. And of course, our successful Artemis mission, Artemis 1 and the Artemis Accords. And there's a lot of overlap from everything I'm hearing from this. So look forward to, I got to take this all back, and I know Giuseppe, you're going to meet with some of our folks at NASA, and we'll continue to have this discussion. But thanks for the presentation and all the work you guys have done.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Some other comments or questions? No, nothing from here. Maybe online. People who are connected online.
I don't see any.
Yeah, Giuseppe, maybe you make some comments and draw some conclusions.
Yeah, maybe, well, thank you, of course, Mr. Chair, and of course, good to have, we have a number of people in the room there. So I just wanted to mention that the work which has been presented here is just the beginning of basically multilateral discussion. What you have in front of you in the framework document, it does take into account, to the best of our ability, all existing similar activity like Artemis Accord. And on this particular point, I want to just mention that many of the people, particularly from US, which have participated in this framework document, have considered that the work done here is fully complementary to Artemis Accord and to all other kind of activity, because it clarifies and it goes in detail in some of the aspects that some of the other activity were not able to go in detail. So this document should be taken as a start of the discussion on the multilateral level. As we said this morning in our statement, we hope that there might be some proposal to move forward in a very pragmatic way, given let's say the urgency of coordinating lunar mission. As we heard before, many missions are going to the moon, and many of them are going in a very similar area of the moon, the South Pole. So there is no much time basically for very long discussion. Of course, we are aware that the process at the level of the UN, it's of course rightfully so, involve 102 countries, the two new countries, so 102 countries. And so we understand that. Nevertheless, we do hope that this framework document, as well as the approach of some of the key participants in this activity, will come with some proposal which could be really adopted quickly in order to put in place a multilateral cooperation and coordination in an operational way that will allow in the short to medium term to exchange information, as well as to coordinate, let's say, technical activity. I think that is, Mr. Chairman, is just the complementary message that I wanted to give. As I said, it is the beginning of a multilateral discussion on international cooperation. We have tried to do our best to take into account everything which is available, that we are aware, and of the people. And of course, we are open to act for GEGSLA in the operational phase, which it has been presented also by Ian. The activity is not halted. There are about 200 plus experts which are going to be involved in the GEGSLA operational phase. And this includes now also a strong scientific component. We have been added recently COSPAR representative, as well as a few others. So we do hope that United Nations will be able to use this GEGSLA in the operational phase, as it is a global expert group for sustainable lunar activity, Mr. Chairman. And we plan to give this kind of similar presentation also to the legal subcommittee, and obviously to the plenary of COPOS, where we do hope that starting with the discussion in these days, we might be able to have delegation rather, will be able to identify a way forward which is pragmatic and implementable in the short term. That's all I wanted to add, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. I want to thank the participants, the live participants here in the conference room. Thank you all of you for being present and listen to our presentation. And before closing this session, just because in the last days happened terrible things around the world, and Turkey and Syria lost a lot of lives during the earthquakes, I just want to express our sorrow and condolences to the peoples of Syria and Turkey for these tremendous losses. Now I consider our mission accomplished, and we hope that at the level of COPUOS we'll find the right framework to discuss and to debate on these topics proposed by us. And I'm quite sure we'll find a way to continue the cooperation and collaboration with these UN structures. Thank you very much for your participation.
Okay, thank you.
And now we close the meeting. Thank you.